Novelty acts fit into the category of 15 minutes of fame. Many come and go, only capturing the public's attention for a moment. Tiny Tim never reached the highest heights of success, but he was one of the more successful novelty acts in the world. He released several albums, many of which went unreleased until after his death, and he appeared in films, radio, and TV. Tim had an outrageous stage persona that fit his odd stage name and exaggerated falsetto voice. Those who knew him realized it was all an act, hiding a sensitive soul whose greatest desire was to study and perform music. Stick around to learn about Tiny Tim's painful final days. Tiny Tim's life. Tiny Tim was born Herbert Corey on April 12, 1932. He was a singer, ukulele player, and activist. His most famous song was his falsetto rendition of Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Tim married Victoria May Buttinger, also known as Miss Vicky, on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. He wrote his own vows, and they announced they were having a baby a month later. Victoria suffered a miscarriage, but later had a healthy child named Tulip Victoria. The couple lived apart and divorced 8 years later. They were married from 1969 to 77. Tim later began another marriage that didn't involve much intimacy and time together. He and Jan Allweiss stayed together from 1984 to 95. His final wife was Susan Marie Gardner. They were married in 1995 until his death in 1996. Most sources report that the singer had finally found true love. Tiny Tim's unique personality. Tiny Tim didn't live up to his boisterous TV personality in real life. A fan named Norman Kay said he was quiet and studious, calling him the greatest put-on artist in the world. Tim also had extensive knowledge of old songs that helped him grow his career. He was an intelligent man who loved and studied music. Even Tim's falsetto tone was an act. His natural voice was a typical baritone range. His career allowed him to show off and occasionally combine both. Tiny Tim's career. Tiny Tim recorded several songs with small recording companies from 1962 to 66. This included gramophone records known as acetates and a 45 record. Tim appeared in Jack Smith's Normal Love and the independent film You Are What You Eat. In the latter, he sang falsetto renditions of the Ronettes song Be My Baby and Sonny and Cher's I Got You Babe. He later got booked on the variety show Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. This appearance earned him a recording contract with Reprise Records. Tim became a notable novelty performer and appeared on several other talk shows, including Johnny Carson, Ed Sullivan, and Jackie Gleason. The peak of his career was when he earned a $50,000 salary performing in Las Vegas. Tim released his first album in 1968. It featured an orchestrated version of Tiptoe Through the Tulips and other falsetto features like Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight. It also allowed him to show off his baritone range and knowledge of the American songbook. It included a duet with himself singing both parts of I Got You Babe. It featured a trio version of On the Old Front Porch featuring Billy Murray and Ada Jones. He also covered the anti-war anthem Stay Down Here Where You Belong. His next single was Bring Back Those Rockabye Baby Days, a song where he was able to combine his falsetto and baritone voice. It received radio exposure in the US but found greater success in the UK. He performed at the Isle of Wight Festival in 1970 in front of 600,000 people. He sang everything from English folk songs to rock and roll classics and was a massive hit. His performance of There'll Always Be in England, sung through a megaphone, brought the crowd to its feet. It was later featured in the 1955 film Message to Love that documented the festival. After this massive moment of success, Tim's career began to slow down. He lost his recording contract with Reprise Records and decided to make his own label. He named it Vic Tim Records, a tongue-in-cheek nod to the name comedians had suggested for his first child. The label released his next 5 singles from 1971 to 72, then shut down. Tim released one single under Scepter Records in 1972 and founded another label with an equally odd name, Toilet Records. It also failed, leaving him to wait 3 years for another record in the US. He did manage to release 2 singles under the Bellophone label in West Germany in 1973, which were later combined and released under Polydor Records in the UK and Belgium in 74. He began to record again in the US in 1976. He released a record almost every year after that until 1990. In 1976, teenager and aspiring musician Richard Barone got Tim to record several cassettes and 2 whole albums, one of which was released in 2009. In 1979 and 80, he went to Australia to record a fully planned studio album. He made 3 albums with producer Martin Sharp, but only a few hundred copies were made of the first and 100 of the second. Neither was released in the US at the time, and Tim didn't make another album until 1986. He hired a teenage DJ named Rich Hendricks to manage his tour dates in 1985. They worked together to revive his career. He released a new song, joined the Alan C. Hill Circus, and played an evil ukulele-playing clown in the horror film Blood Harvest in 1987. He released a country single called Leave Me Satisfied for NLT Records in 1988. He visited Nashville during the Country Music Fan Fair, an event now known as the CMA Music Festival. He also re-recorded 2 country albums that were never released. Tim released more albums in the 90s when public interest in his music was on the rise. They included Rock, I Love Me, and Girlin'. He also recorded an unreleased Tiptoe Through the Tulips music video with the New York punk band Ism. He appeared on The Howard Stern Show several times and in his film Private Parts in 1997. He also appeared on TV shows and worked with other artists like Brave Combo, His Majesty, Current 93, and Nurse with Wound. Tim slowed down but continued to work near the end of his life. He was a regular feature at the Halloween exhibition Spooky World in Shakopee, Minnesota. He also did TV commercials for local merchants and mentored his neighbor, conductor Jack Norton, on the ukulele. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Tiny Tim's final days. Tiny Tim suffered a heart attack while playing at the Ukulele Festival at Montague Grange Hall in September 1996. He went to the Franklin County Medical Center in Greenfield for 3 weeks. Despite strong warnings to not perform due to his serious diabetes and heart conditions, Tim loved music too much to not continue to play. He had also stopped taking his medication by November 28th of 1996, telling his wife, quote, "One day it won't matter." Susan's stepmother booked Tim to perform at a benefit dinner for the Women's Club of Minneapolis on November 30th. She'd purchased hundreds of copies of his latest album, Prisoners of Love, to give as gifts. Tim insisted he had to perform despite his failing health. He didn't want the public to think he wasn't doing the event because no one was paying him for it. The last known recording of Tiny Tim's voice was left on his friend Jim Foley's answering machine. He congratulated him and his wife on the recent birth of their daughter. Tim was already weak and struggling to walk when he got into the limousine to drive to the event. He received a rushed introduction and took the stage to a nearly empty room. He performed 5 songs instead of the 2 or 3 he promised. The final one, a rendition of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, was the last time he used his falsetto voice. A few moments into the song, he cut it short, mumbled "God bless" to the audience, and collapsed. Susan led him off the stage and asked if he was okay. He responded, "No, I'm not." He was taken to the Hennepin County Medical Center. Doctors attempted to resuscitate Tim for 45 minutes. They re-established a heartbeat twice, but it gave out immediately afterwards. Tiny Tim was declared dead November 30th, 1996, at age 64. A few of Tim's songs were released after his death. The Rhino Handmade label released a 1968 recording of Tiny Tim live at the Royal Albert Hall in 2000. They made a limited number of copies, and it sold out and had to be re-released. Justin A. Martell wrote a book about Tim's life entitled Eternal Troubadour, The Improbable Life of Tiny Tim. It was released February 9th, 2016. Susan promoted it in honor of the 20th anniversary of her husband's death. Tiny Tim was more than a novelty act. He was an intelligent, dedicated singer who continued to give the world meaningful performances until the day of his death. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you ever listened to any Tiny Tim albums? And would you consider doing so after watching this video? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.